So usually when I do calls, I'm pretty calm. I don't know what to expect, but I have an idea, and I just try to keep an open mind and stay ready and present in the moment. I don't think I felt that way before this call.
I knew going into the call that I was going to carry the weight of it, even though there was a bunch of people in the room, because it's my area of expertise. I've been in life or death situations before where my life, my friend's life, depend on actions that I took. I was a police officer and a narcotics agent, and I can remember gearing up and getting ready to serve a search warrant on someone's house. And the feeling that I got then is kind of the same feeling that I got when I was prepping for the call.
I think I was not nervous. I wouldn't say nervous. Maybe a little anxious and excited about the call, because I think despite my best efforts, I let maybe the scale and the fiscal benefits that the job had maybe get to me a little bit.
When that much money is on the table, I don't think anybody would not feel nervous. I truly believed going into the call that we were the right ones for the job, and I still think that we're the right ones for the job.
I know that the energy in the room changed after the call, obviously.
I was expecting the client, the lead, to have questions for me, and I was prepared to answer their questions to the best of my ability. What I wasn't prepared for was the pitch. We were expected to go through and pitch our concept, not even a concept, we were expected to pitch the engagement. And I was not prepared for that.
It was really unknown. And what I mean by that is we hung up, and I really had no idea how that call went. Like I remember being there, I remember doing the call, and I remember, discussing everything, but I couldn't put my finger on if the call went well or if it did not went well, because I remember thinking that there wasn't any clear sign that the call went spectacular, right? We weren't smiling and like, haha, see you later, talk to you soon, hang up. It definitely wasn't that. At the same time, it wasn't like, oh my God, that was so embarrassing. I can't believe, he said this. I can't believe she did that, and blah, blah, blah. There was nothing like that. It was just kind of like neutral.
Knowing that they didn't understand what I was trying to say really clued me in on the fact that I just bombed the call.
So what happened on the call when the client's engineer started asking very technical questions? Did the guy, our partner, answer those questions on the call?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I don't think really technical questions came up.
Okay.
I don't know. They got pretty in there.
Did they?
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
I'm pretty technical, and they were using some terms that I was like, oh.
It was a brief dip into that. It wasn't like 90% of the conversation about that. They asked lots of questions like, how do we work together? Who is this? And it wasn't clear to them.
Right.
We also learned something, that the clients don't always read the proposal
Right.
until the call. Yeah. And I understand that they're busy. I don't read our own proposals until I have to. And so then we have to get our game ready to tell that story, tell it quickly, and be of the moment.
Yes.
Now let's go over the call. The call is an area where we can improve upon. So we can do better as the call. So Mr. Burns, who led the call, tell me what we can do better.
My first instinct was to ask for questions on the proposal, and in this case, they hadn't read it. And so having an agenda, or even like maybe it's even a backup agenda, so that I can present our proposal or pitch our bid, would have been a better
What would the
way to
agenda
go.
sound like? Just stay out of bed. What would the agenda sound like to you?
Well, it was a pitch, and we didn't know it. And don't know how to pitch like that. So I was completely kind of lost.
Okay. How could we have helped you? You're not going to get that experience overnight.
Right.
These guys have done it a lot. I've done it even more so. So what? Maybe we can take a moment. Okay, let's take a camera over here, Aaron. You okay? In all our years of pitching, what have we learned that we can share with Ben? This is what you do during the pitch. Just think back, guys. Your first 5 pitches were probably horrible.
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole point of the meeting is to just get into the meat right away. Just avoid all the fluffy conversation. For me, it's just like, have you guys had a chance to look at the pitch? I'd like to jump to anything you guys already had quick concerns with and just focus on that. Or I could walk you through the pitch deck, you know, and I could go and I could stop anytime. Like, I'm not stuck to any script. I'm just here to answer any of your questions as they come up. So just being really open on the agenda as opposed to being like, oh, we have 5 minutes for this, 10 minutes for that. For me, it's just more of like feeling out the room and making sure that whoever's on the other side, because I'm assuming they're the decision maker, that they stay engaged with the call and that this sell-through is much easier because we can get that repertoire of just answering all the things that it matters most to that person on the other line.
Mm-hmm.
I think the one thing that kind of threw you off and threw all of us off was I think we did kind of like say like, you know, hello, do you guys have any questions, all that, and they kind of, I feel like if my memory serves me correctly, it was they didn't have any questions, they weren't familiar with it, so they kind of pushed it right back on us and say, okay, you guys take it from here and just start. So I think that might have been what thrown us off is we didn't have that guidance of here's our concerns, our questions, here's what we want to know more about. It was kind of like, cool, tell us. And it was kind of like, wait, should we start at the page 1 or do you know exactly where we started? So it took us a little bit longer than I think we would all would have liked to really kind of get going and dive into it.
Right. So then what I would do in that
I think
situation...
that, first of all, did you guys remember it like that?
I did. For the most part, yeah.
I think it went down like that, where they didn't really give us clear direction as to here's our 3 questions because we read it so thoroughly, I highlighted everything.
Right.
Or, hey, no, guys, and sometimes clients do this, literally just walk us through the whole thing
Yeah.
without them saying, I haven't read it yet, guys, and this will give me an opportunity to read it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was kind of stuck in no man's land. Okay, so now what?
Usually for me, because I know with written proposals, you try and put all the nice detail in there, it tells a good story, but I try to reframe whatever the heck we're talking about.
Right.
Like, so here's what we heard last time we spoke together. I heard this, this, and this, and we had to address these objections and make sure we address all of this in the proposal. We've done all of that here, and then you can just kind of jump right into it. So just reframing
Summarize.
what the problem was that you guys are trying to solve for them so that you guys are all on the same page. And that kind of leads you right into page 1 or page 10 of your...
That's a good,
Because
that's
you
a good
could
strategy.
skip ahead.
Excellent strategy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What Matthew was saying, let's do a quick recap then. Here's the top 3 things we heard. There were some concerns about security, whether or not a team like ours can work, and if we have the technical chops to meet that. So when we said, here's the things that they needed to hear, actually the domain expertise was the number 1 thing.
Right.
How do we prove domain expertise?
We brought in the best person for the job. It wasn't us, and we're always going to do right by this job. So we found the domain expert for this.
Well,
Here's
not
our
only
partner.
that, we demonstrate expertise by having an informed conversation with the client, by asking really great questions. That's how you know somebody knows something. Okay? So it can't just be like, yeah, we're really good at calling 411.
Right.
It just can't be. Okay? And here's how we're going to work. We're basically squashing every objection they might have prior to them even mouthing it. Now, I'm going to recommend you guys do this with one of the sales agents that we wound up hiring on the very first call. He's obviously done this a gazillion times and gave us the whole pitch. We do have that call, and I don't think it was transcribed, but we do have the whole call. You should listen to it and study it and understand what they're doing. The first thing they did was to identify a very common pain point for us. Okay? They said, well, let me tell you why sales don't work. Because it takes too long, takes time to vet, and before you know it, you've spent this amount of money with 0 leads, and the results could be 6 months later. We don't work that way. So he already touched on the 3 things that we're going to say. You take too long, it's too expensive, it takes too long to ramp up, and it doesn't work. He already said it. So that means if you're aware of it, that means I've already solved for that problem. Okay? You're concerned that there are 2 teams working on this and not one, and I'll tell you why that's a benefit. You're concerned that this and then this and this, that we don't have the expertise, when in fact we scoured the planet and found guys who are doing work at this same level for clients just like yours or just like you. And I'm going to turn it over to him to speak about the very specific technical things, and you guys can have an engineering talk so that you feel comfortable. Because I don't think there's a conversation to have if you don't feel comfortable with engineering. Okay, we are strong at design, but sometimes what the clients are not asking for is design. They're asking for all the other stuff. So we don't want to go in there and sell that. Okay? We have to be very attentive to what the real problems are. I think some of these things are like hitting the deadline. Security is good, but it's like a lot of people can make these kind of claims. We wouldn't be in business if we couldn't hit the deadline. So everybody's invited, it's going to hit the deadline. Nobody's going to present a case that's not it. So really, we need to bone up on their expertise, and that's the questions. Here's the bit. It looks like everything they're used to seeing.
Yeah.
The engineers feel comfortable. So there's always a blocker. The deal blocker in this case potentially could have been the engineers. I don't know. Making a lot of assumptions here. We got to get over that, because we should have gotten to the 2nd or 3rd call when they get into the specifics. Like, let me know about your team again, send bios of every single person. We should be able to get there. And then if we lose it at that point, it's like we did everything we're supposed to. We got killed.
This was the 3rd? Second call?
I don't mean it like that. First call is a preliminary
Yeah,
call.
it's just a
Second
briefing.
call is the pitch proposal.
Yeah.
Engagements like this tend to have 2 or 3 subsequent. You talk to accounting, you need to deal with all your. That's when Scott knows that the job's going to happen. You got to get through all these gates.
Oh.
Okay. You know how like we did one call with
Yeah.
everybody, and then we eliminated the field down to 1. Then we had another call with them. You see, like, and then we had a 3rd call with them to get on the call with the client. And if we had a 4th call in scheduling teams, then you know they know they're going to get the job. The more calls you have, subsequent calls, different phases mean clients more and more engaged, because they're not going to spend all that time jerking your chain. Doesn't make any sense. All right? So, okay, so Ben and everybody, we're going to quickly assess where we're at. Did you guys read it? Do you have any questions? If not, we don't shame them into it. We're like, okay, why don't we do this? Why don't we really recap what we heard? Okay, this is what we heard. And then you can go in a non-linear fashion, not page by page. Nobody wants to do that. That's deadly. Okay? Pick up the most important things. Did we miss anything? This gives them time to think. Okay? Do you have any further questions? So we're going to recap the top 3, and what we're going to do is we're going to surface the unspoken objections. When I put quotes, it's not I'm quoting myself. I'm just trying to make sure you guys know that that's a term. You guys know what the surface, that unspoken objections, right? The things that are not ready to say to you, but you've already said them all. Okay? Okay, that would give Mr. Burns time to figure out whatever. He should be ready. And I think another thing that you guys have to remember, and this is going to come over time, is to be very much in the moment, be completely transparent. It's hard to do, it takes practice, and we got to just keep practice doing it. Be in the moment, say what you think. Say what you think. Okay, I'm going to write that down because that's a new rule here. It's a Blair Enns rule. Say what you think. And we're going to start applying this in small ways, so when it's game day, you guys have no problem. Okay? New rule at blind. Say what you think.
I'm thinking there's one other thing I'm thinking.
Which is?
Something you mentioned a long time ago, which is oftentimes when you're presenting or pitching, what you think they're most concerned about, they do not care about. It's always something else, something that might be super insignificant and the easiest thing in the world to just, and going back to being present. So instead of, like, what I tell myself is, don't think about what you're going to say next or how you're going to reply to that. Just listen to what they're saying right now. And if they want to talk about that little like green square over there, talk about that. Talk about that all day for as long as they want to talk about it, because they're engaged in that, and that's where they want to be. No matter what the script says or what you have mapped out, you're going to talk about next. We're talking about that right now.
Listen intently, right? Don't listen to respond.
Yes.
Which also means going off the script. It's very hard to do because you rehearse and rehearse and rehearse, and you have to be ready to jump the track at a moment's notice. Because when they ask a question, you can always tell you answer the wrong question.
Yeah. Right.
All right, what you have for breakfast? It's funny you should ask that. I drive a Toyota. You're like, what? And it's not as obvious to you, but it's obvious to everybody in the room. And we need to be good partners for each other. I don't think we have to outline that because we already are, but I need you guys to know that if you were in the hot seat, buy your partner some time. And then now you guys also know, you can say, and we're practicing this on our show, is to say, I need a moment to think about that. That's a really great question that you raise. Don't be foolish to race in there with a knee-jerk answer. It's not a good answer. If they throw you a really good question, just know that it's going to take some time to think about how to respond. An intelligent person is not one who responds quickly, but the one who takes time to think about it, to ask follow-up questions. In some strange ways, when you ask follow-up questions, they kind of answer their own question. And you realize it was a poorly formulated question to begin with. And when you give them opportunity to address it again, they do a much better job. And they are leading you to the answer they want to hear anyways. You just have to be willing to do that. So don't slow down. Don't be quick to answer. All right? All right. Anything else, you guys?
I wasn't on the call, but one general rule of thumb is don't want the job when you go into the job, when you go into the pitch thing. But that's just a mentality checkbox that you have to do before you get in.
I don't think anybody was eager on the call to oversell. Mm-hmm. There are no zealots here where we're like, yeah, aren't we the greatest, and just pitch. I don't think anybody did that, but that's a good thing to be mindful of, and I think we've trained ourselves to think like that, right? We're going to come in, we're going to be detached emotionally, and we're passionate when we do the work, but totally detached when it comes to presenting work and what the outcome looks like, okay? We asked them some questions. Obviously, they didn't say anything because I think in this one specific case, and it's not often that we have this, they're also young, very polite clients too. Typically, when we ask that question of, is there something we missed? Because if there is and you don't feel comfortable, I'd like to hear it now so that we can scramble and figure out how we can respond to that, because we don't want to walk away thinking that we're a contender when we're not. And when it comes to more senior level creatives, they'll say, guys, I'm concerned about this, this, and that. You didn't answer that. You confused me here. But these are younger, much more polite clients, and they didn't say anything. They thought it, obviously, because they didn't give us the job. So in this situation, and if it played differently, they might have said, guys, I'm really concerned that there are two teams here. Why shouldn't we just hire Team A and not Team A and B? Because I'm pretty sure we're going to pay a heavy tax on that, aren't we? I think Ben was prepared to answer that question. That was one of the ones that we talked about, right? But they didn't say it. And then in the follow-up call that Scott had with the client, they're like, we had to kind of have a conversation.
Yeah.
They didn't say anything.
Yeah, I had two follow-up conversations. The first one was that immediate after you guys did your lunch, and he was like, my initial gut is that team is concerned, and then obviously when he broke the news, that concern came to light.
What was the concern?
About the two teams, his engineering team had their concerns about it. That was his first initial gut, and then when he did meet with his team, they told him that.
Yeah.
Ultimately, that was a...
Let me tell you how to address the impossible, okay? When people say to me, we're concerned that you're a California company and we're East Coast, what do we say? How do we respond to that?
We gotta work on your time and you won't feel the difference.
That's what we say. We just meet the thing head on. And then we give them an example. We say, we'll readjust our schedule. We'll assign a specific team to be able to be here on your time. so that you can sync up and you'll never work around our time. But I'll tell you why it's an advantage. Because typically, and we pivot here, typically what happens is meetings, you have to get approvals, and you can do that without chewing up time, so we're not sitting on our hands. So you have the benefit of both. We'll assign a team member to field any calls and questions that you have at whatever time you want, whether you're in Singapore, when you're in New York, or wherever else you're at. And secondly, our day starts later. Therefore, once we get the notes and have a chance to organize the team, they can get marching, we get a lot more done. So we don't end until you're 10 o'clock. That's an advantage, especially if you have like end of day thoughts too. We can incorporate that and get started. So you're getting the best of both. We will meet you head on. So where they say it's two teams, we have to understand why that's a problem and address that. So that should have been a question we've thrown to the technical team and said, how do we operate like one team for you? As if you were a California company. That's when he says, I will be out there for 4 trips. Here are the key milestones. I'll bring myself and my lead engineer, and we will adjust to LA time. We'll get up later.
We'll have stuff.
We'll have like a dedicated FTP. Right, we'll have stuff. See? And that's how we say it. Here's the benefit, you guys. We can play this on both sides. So we need to truly understand that should have been in the deck.
Yeah.
Because we didn't hear that loud and clear. We did not respond to it. And we need a commitment from our partner as to what they're willing to do. I only found out after the fact they're willing to fly out here and do all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That should have been just part of the budget. We could have padded the budget in that instance and covered travel expenses on our end. Just like, we want you to be here as if you're just part of our company. Actually, we want you to put a producer here full-time for the duration of the project to run it. Look how smart we sound now.
Yeah.
Then the clients are like, whoa, you're going to have one of their dudes at your office? I'm like, yeah, we work together. That's how we work. It's not about the money. It's about making you feel comfortable. Okay?
Remember on the call, I was not sure who the decision maker was because there was, I think, at least 2 different departments from within this client on there. And I'm not sure who had more say like marketing or engineers or project manager and stuff. So I wonder if you guys have any ideas about how to approach that. If you approach it at all, does that matter?
Who the decision maker is?
Yeah, so if you're on a call with a group of like 6 or 7 people and you don't know, like usually it's pretty clear who's the lead, who's like the person you're going to talk to. You know, like on our side it was Ben. On their side, no idea who that was or what their role was.
Right.
Or anything. It was just kind of like a group of people listening.
Right.
The conversation I had, they were equally decisions. There was the marketing team that needed to get their concerns met, and there was the engineer team, and they all had equal concerns and equal voices.
Yeah, so let's
now,
say that's...
I don't know if that's true or not, but that's the way it was portrayed to me.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I guess I don't know, like, I'm accustomed to talking to one person, and then there's other people there too. That makes conversations really easy.
Yeah.
You know, when there's a group, you're kind of just talking into a void, and you're like,
Yeah.
anyone have anything to say? So
Usually you could just frame the conversation up front, right? So it's like, okay, we have a 30-minute call. I want to spend as much time on that call addressing your guys' concerns and answering any questions you have. Before I get there, I just want to go around the room and listen who's on the other side so that I know what you guys are listening for, so I understand what parts of the deck are important to you.
yeah.
So it's like, if you're from marketing, I'm assuming you want to be you want to know about A, B, and C. If you're on the engineering side, I know you want to spend time in here. So I want to make sure everybody gets their equal time on this call, and I get to address everybody.
Yeah.
And then usually if there's somebody who's like spearheading the whole thing or the main decision maker, usually at that point they'll step in and be like, I oversee everything, or usually or somebody that's lower will say, oh, Bob is the one who answers everybody's question. He's the final say.
Right.
So that's a good way to do it at the beginning.
So the simple thing is, you can ask somewhere in here, who and how will you make your decision? We always ask this question, right? And they'll be reluctant to tell us. But you can ask. And we have to remember something. In most corporate environments, it's a CYA, cover your,
Yeah.
right? So nobody wants to get fired, nobody wants to speak out, so they're going to take the most conservative route. On $1 million project, that's $1 million mistake, you get fired for that stuff instantly. And it's bad for your professional reputation moving forward. You're the idiot who hired those idiots who screwed this whole thing up. So we have to make sure we are seen as the safest choice.
Yeah.
We have to just keep remembering that, okay? Our goal is to be the least risky. We talked about this, the least risky option. We have to be. And all we did was present risk to teams, factored dollar, whatever it is. Oh my God, they're only going to facilitate one day. So we got to solve that problem, okay? And then one last little bit that I'm going to talk about that there's no way Matt can know, but I think we've forgotten about. There was something that happened on the call that I've replayed in my mind that I know that we need to do better. When they asked us a specific question, we did not give them a specific answer.
Yeah.
They asked us point blank, what's wrong with our site? And we should have said, We should have known that. And you know how we would know that? We would ask our partner to tell them what's wrong with the site. And we would know too. We do know some things. We're not like total idiots, just part-time. We could say this, and that. And I think if I ask you, Greg, you're the expert of character animation. I'm going to show you a crappy piece of character animation. Tell me what's wrong. And you're like, well, it just doesn't work. Okay, Greg's out. He's not an expert. Experts have these things. They've seen them. They can see them a mile away. And if we hit on their top 3 things about what's wrong, I'm not talking about prescribing solutions. They're just saying what's wrong.
Yeah.
That we recognize what's wrong, and that's going to put us in the point category there. So you know what I'm saying? So I'm going to just say get specific, tell them what's wrong when they ask. Only when they ask, obviously. So that is, what is that called? Diagnosing, not prescribing. Then we're done. I think that's it. Okay? This was $1 million learning opportunity. Okay? We can learn from this. And this is the kind of education you get in the field when the stakes are highest, unfortunately. This is not the kind of stuff you get by reading a book. You have to go through this, and this is how we learn. And there's a very, very valuable lesson here.